Hey, how's it going? This is James P. White from 95.7 Cruise FM, The Locker Room, and welcome to the Jedi Jimmy Podcast, Episode 12. This is Lightsaber Form number 3, also called Soresu, the Way of the Mynock, and the Resilience Form. Now, Soresu was actually developed during the widespread use of blasters. Now, the whole purpose of this was actually to build off of Form 1, which was used to defend against lightsabers. And so this is actually was developed for the use against blasters, where it actually is one of it focuses on very tight and powerful blade work, and as well as subtle dodges for the maximum defense coverage. Now, Soresu actually, like many other of the lightsaber styles, actually focuses heavily on the economy of motion and the energy and efficiency of constant blade movement. Because the more your blade is moving, the more momentum you have in using your blade, and it can be focused on strong techniques on defending against the blasters and outlasting your opponent. Now, there were a number of masters of this style. First of all was Mace Windu, who actually was a master of this one, but he was one of few that was a master of Form 7, which I'm going to get into in a few more forms since we are only on Form 3. Luminara and Dolly, as well as Barriss Offee, who later turned on the Jedi, but that's a totally different story. Syndraulic, who was actually one of the main Jedi lightsaber trainers that stayed specifically in the temple to train the Padawans and younglings. He was not involved in the Clone Wars. He stayed at the temple. And as well as Grandmaster Yoda, he was a master of this style. You can see that heavily in his fight against the Emperor in the fall of the Jedi. And one of the highest members of Soresu was actually Obi-Wan Kenobi. You can see that in all his techniques that he used, especially during the Clone Wars and when he was fighting against Obi-Wan Kenobi in their final battle. Uh, sorry, no, when he was fighting against Anakin. No, he wasn't fighting against Obi-Wan Kenobi. He is Obi-Wan Kenobi. So when he was fighting against Anakin, who was at that point turned to Darth Vader, but he wasn't in the suit yet. Now, Darth Vader also really, after he lost to Obi-Wan, really focused on Form 3 because it worked really well with his cybernetics and his suit, and he later became very well attuned as well with that form, Soresu. Now, some of the basic defenses in Soresu are first I'm going to teach you the stance. So the stance is very similar to the stance that we use in Form 1, which you have, but you have if your right hand's strong, your right hand dominant, you have your left foot forward, your right foot back in an L stance, but you're pretty much your legs are shoulder width apart. And so again, your back foot is facing perpendicular to your front foot. Now, your opening stance, your left hand forward, your right hand above your head, behind your back and above your head, with your blade facing towards your opponent. Now, some of the basic movements are as such. So you're always holding your weapon with two hands. So you go from your back stance, you grab the blade, and now you step backwards, and you're pulling your blade in close to you, so it's facing forward, but blocking the whole inner part of your body. So you're blocking your body with the blade like such. So, and then the next movement is kind of the same, but you're pulling the blade in back again across your body. So you're not only are you defending, but the movements are a dodge. So you're stepping back and forth, dodging, as well as there is a lower block as well. We step back, same thing, block low, step back, block low. But these are all two-handed techniques. Now, on top of those defenses, there are a number of other defenses that you use in this style. So one of which is, like, again, you're stepping back and holding the blade above your head, two-handed, and it's facing that way, and you're defending down, and the same with the other side. You just step back with the other foot. So you're always alternating your stance and defending accordingly. And when you are alternating your stance, your body is facing at an angle so that you're in a way that the blow will, with the deflection, will move away from you. Now, there are several other techniques that you can use. Now, there is one technique is you step back and hold the blade, or step, like, again, and you're holding the blade over your head, but covering your back, and the same on the other side. Now, there is a one-handed block where you're blocking in behind your back, but it doesn't work for me necessarily because I have short arms, because it's a one-handed block where you stick it behind you and the blade is going up. So one thing that I do, and I'm very good at manipulating the hilt in my hand. So you flip it so that your blade itself is parallel to your forearm, and then you can block behind your back with your blade heading up towards the top of your head. Now, other techniques that work really well for this style is the learning how to spin and rotate your weapon. Like, there's multiple spins. Here are so basically they start out with a figure eight where you're manipulating your weapon, singing, like, if you watch the path of your blade, it's going in an 8. Okay, then if you do that and you rotate your wrist, so when you're doing it, the blade will follow, and it works really well when defending multiple blaster shots on a number of different directions. And again, you can step back and move around like that with the spinning of the lightsaber. Now, one thing I find with these training lightsabers, as I like to call them, is they are long and a little bit heavier to get used to. So you do need to build up the strength in your arms, but to work on the direction and make sure that you have the flow correctly. I do have a tendency of using my staff. It's an aluminum staff, which is a little shorter, a little lighter, that does work the same way, and you can practice with that. Now, here are some techniques. I'm going to give you a bunch of random techniques and movements and spins using both the staff, the aluminum staff, and the lightsaber to show you the complete movements. Here you go. as I said, the purpose of this style right here is actually to learn how to defend against blaster bolts. So I actually asked my friends Grant Johnson and Lachlan Cross to help me demonstrate these techniques and how they can be used against blaster bolts. Now they're going to shoot at me with Nerf guns. Here's a quick video of that. I need to thank you so much for joining me for this episode. I really love this podcast, and kind of not only am I, trying to teach you the different forms of lightsaber combat, but in doing so, I'm practicing the styles myself and learning a little bit more and more every day. I really love this. I do need to thank my sponsors as well. The Dean Blundell Network on deanblundell.com, as well as Fire for Effect Productions, my buddy Army Chris. He actually taught me how to do this podcast thing, really got me so that I'm able to pretty much do this on my own. And again, I do need to thank Lachlan Cross and Grant Johnson, who also work with me on the locker room. I need to thank them for helping me. I really look forward to seeing you next week when I talk about the next form of lightsaber combat, which is Form 4. It is a crazy one. I need a lot of room for that one. Form 4 is actually Yoda's style. So if you remember from all his fighting both against Dooku and the Emperor, there's a lot of jumps and flips and rotations, hand transitions, a number of things. This is It's going to need a lot more room than I have in the Den of Sadness. But I look forward to seeing you next week.